Alright, welcome back to the channel. Warhammer Man back in the studio, and today we're taking a look at the new shades that are coming down the line. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe for Warhammer 40,000, Kill Team Necromunda, Age of Sigmar, and Warcry content, as well as a little Horus Heresy mixed in there. At least one video every single day, reactions, reviews, news, painting, modeling, conversion tutorials about your favorite tabletop war games. So let's jump right in and make sure to subscribe. Top tips for using the 7 all-new shade paints. So here we see the 7 new shades. I would have to say, like, my opinion on these so far, I like what we're seeing here. This basically strikes me as essentially like watered down shades. But, you know, obviously instead of water, you know, essentially you're taking the shade and then you're using some of the median and doing like a 50-50 mix basically, so it still behaves the same way, but the overall effect that you get is lighter. So they're more like kind of like a tint or something like that. I think they're good overall. I think they fill a gap. You know, obviously if I'm right about what these are or what they do, you could basically just take some median and, you know, mix it and get the same effect. But it is nice, you know, if you're painting a whole army, or in my case doing commissions or something like that, to know that you have that exact mix every single time, etc. So, you know, always cool to have additional items offered. Whether you choose to or not to purchase those items, obviously up to you. But I think there's probably at least a couple of winners here in the bunch. So let's take a look. Last week, we looked at some of the Warhammer TV presenter extraordinaire Emma Robinson's favorite colors from the new Contrast Paints range. Now we're sitting down with Emma once more to get her top tips on using the new and freshly formulated shade paints. So they haven't told us anything about what reformulated shade paints means. We know that the gloss shades are going away. We know that they're saying they reformulated all the other shades. But the truth is, in all reality, you know, these just essentially look like what I said. They look like they're about a 50-50 mix of the existing shades and median. And then also the most important thing, and probably what the quote-unquote reformulation or the big change is they're no longer in 24 milliliter pots. Now they are in 18 milliliter pots. So if by reformulating the shades, what GW is getting at is they just put them in smaller bottles, the old ones, and then just put out some new colors also in smaller bottles, I think that's probably, you know, a safe assumption. So, you know, reformulation or more just like shrinkflation, repackaging, we'll have to see. But I think probably the latter. So shade paints bring your miniatures to life by providing a dark tone in recessed areas to contrast with lighter colors in raised areas. The experts who make that known how vital shades are, so they're formulated the entire range to make it even better. Shades now flow even more smoothly into cracks and crevices and color the raised parts of your miniatures less, making them easier to use and more effective than ever before. So obviously that's what they used to do, but I don't know if there's actually a reformulation. Like, are they now using some like contrast median mixed in here and that's how they're getting this effect? Or is it just regular median and it leaves more in the recesses because, you know, basically there's only so much pigment. When you take the median and mix it in there, now you have half as much pigment per like volume of paint. So when you put it on your model, it's more likely to recess darker in those areas and not as much on the top. But again, there's other things as well, you know, like you know, factors in it, how the paint behaves. So we don't know exactly what it is until we test them. We don't know for sure, but I'm speculating at this point in time that this is basically just a way to rebottle old shades in smaller bottles for the same price, you know, essentially just raising your prices on paints per milliliter, and then also just to do what I said about kind of watering them down. So we'll see, but you know, it's not like it's a bad thing or anything. You know, obviously them coming in a smaller container for more money is bad, but you know, having more options is not. Citadel Color Paint Wizards have also created 7 new shade paints, adding even more options to your toolkit alongside personal favorites like Nuln Oil and Agrex Earthshade. Here's Emma to provide her expert advice on using these new tools. See, I find it very hard to believe that Nuln Oil and Agrex Earthshade are like all of a sudden, and like Reikland Flash Shade, all the big shades. I find it hard to believe that they're going to take what is probably the best product on the market, arguably, and they're going to change it in some way. I mean, it's possible maybe they make it better, but I think more realistically they're just rebottling it. Let's be real. So we have Tyron Blue. So this right off the bat, you can look at how it looks in the bottle, and this basically just looks like the blue from the contrast range, just watered down, honestly, or like thinned down. You know what I mean? I use this all the time for effect, and it works phenomenally well. So I would imagine that probably GW has figured this out themselves, and that's all we're seeing here. So this to me looks exactly like Talosar Blue mixed like 50-50 with, contrast medium or something like that. We'll have to see, obviously, but I do use this very often. The Citadel color paint range gets a truly blue shade, which works wonderfully with colors such as Calador Sky on the cloaks and capes of the Lumineth Realm Lords. And again, this sort of, when I made this myself, this kind of mix right here, out of Talosar Blue and the median and everything, my goal was essentially to kind of come up with a replacement for like the old like glazes, like Guilliman Blue or Guilliman, I can't remember what it was called. I think it was Guilliman Blue, but it was like the old glaze. And, I think that's what these look like. A little bit more glazy and a little less more shady, if that makes sense. So Emma says, Tyron Blue is a lovely bright blue shade that looks great over light blues and also creates some esoteric color combinations when applied over silver and gold. Iron Hand Steel with coat of Tyron Blue and Stormcast Silver, Stormhost Silver highlight gives you a lovely magical steel, for instance. Yeah, I have to agree with that. Targor Rage Shade. So the angriest of the new shade paints isn't just for the followers of Khorne, but it does work particularly well on them. Not really sure where they're going with that. Emma, I love Targor Rage Shade for really rugged light leathers and for tanned skin tones of warriors who roam the open plains in the mortal realms. It also looks great in Recess of Rakarth Flesh for a pallid but war-torn skin tone, ideal for Chaos Space Marines. So this one, it's tough to really get an idea what's going on here. This basically just looks like a really light kind of like brownish red tan. I don't know. What I am seeing here that's notable, towards the bottom of the little pouch right here and the hand, we're seeing this effect, and it looks more like watered down contrast paints, honestly, than it does like how a normal shade would act. But here we see, look at this little glob on his leg right there. I think that, again, that looks more like what a contrast paint does than a shade. So, I mean, we'll have to see. I think a lot of it is the factor is like the viscosity of the paints themselves. So Soul Blight Gray is next. Soul Blight Gray is perfect for adding a more subtle depth to your miniatures. If you're a fan of Drakenhof Nightshade but need something a little lighter, this shade is for you. That doesn't even make sense. Drakenhof Nightshade is like dark blue, I'm pretty sure. Am I thinking of the wrong paint? I don't know. I don't know where they're going with some of this stuff. Emma says, spooky but soft at the same time. Soul Blight Gray shades with a light gray tone, perfect for the ghoulish skin and dirty bones of Grand Alliance death models. I like using it over Screaming Skull for the weathered Death Rattle skeleton bone, then dry brushing up from there. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure on this. I could literally like stand up and grab a paint, but I'm pretty sure Drakenhof Nightshade is like a really dark blue. So that's clearly not right. This is nothing to do with Drakenhof Nightshade. This is clearly like a kind of light gray. And again, this is sort of a combination of like the white contrast paint, Apothecary White, and Shade. So Apothecary White makes everything like a little more gray and takes away from like the brightness of the white a little bit. This sort of looks like it's just kind of somewhere in between. It doesn't seem to have as much of like the graying effect. The real thing that I notice here with these new shades is they all have kind of like a milky look to them, which again makes me think they're more similar to contrast paints than they are actual shades. Doesn't mean they're bad or anything, but so next we have Berserker Bloodshade. Wait, maybe this is the angriest of the new shades. Berserker Bloodshade is a great way to add a different, slightly redder finish to your miniatures than Fugan Orange. So yeah, I totally agree with that. This makes much more sense if this would be your Berserker Bloodshade, like red. The other one was obviously not that. Emma, you can't get better than a shade with blood in its name. Berserker Bloodshade looks excellent over light and reddish tones for Chaos Demons, or the Tormented Flesh of Possessed. Shading over Rakarth Flesh or Iron Rack Skin is a great way to achieve inflamed skin tones and sickly pale flesh. I do agree with that. This looks like it would go well, like kind of working around some areas for like a zombie or something like that. Again, looks good overall. The effect on the model, if you're painting with this right out of the pot and it's giving you that effect, I think it looks nice. Now, what are you going to use this effect for? Obviously, that's up to you. But again, these are more, in my opinion, like a glaze than a shade in some senses. But over the right paints, I think these can look really nice. Like that looks good to me. I like that. Next, we have Mortarian Grime. Nuln Oil and Agrex Earthshade have been used by Warhammer hobbyists for years to dirty up models. Now Mortarian Grime gives you yet another way to add filth to your recesses and stand out on the battlefield. Emma says, this is a fantastic shade of making things look grimy, but not too dark or green. Perfect for Death Guard, it also looks great over silver metals and light bone colors, and works a treat for a worn gear of orcs and chaos alike. Love it. So Mortarian Grime. Looks pretty good overall. Essentially, this looks to me like probably Agrex Earthshade diluted like 50-50 with medium. It still kind of has that Agrexy look to it where it dries real dark in certain areas, but the overall tint of it is rather subtle. Looks good though. Again, you know, a lot of these look good. I'm not sure exactly what you would use them for or if they're necessity by any means, but I'm sure a couple of these are going to be gems and really going to make their way into our painting. So Kroak Green is next. It's not just for Lord Kroak. The new shade provides a lighter, fresher finish than Baleton Green. So yeah, I agree with that. It basically looks like Baleton Green diluted 50-50 with medium. Overall, looks like a nice effect and would be do well on certain things. Maybe like Night Haunt or possibly like some Death Guard or zombies or something. A lot of these look like basically what you would use to tint like something. Like how I paint zombies is I typically paint them like a fleshy kind of color, and then I'll tint them different colors of like green or red or, you know, purple or brown or whatever. And this is kind of like the effect that you're going for. So you have different kind of looks to them overall based on like how long they've been rotting for or whatever. I don't know. So Emma says a nice light green shade with a hint of yellow. Kroak Green looks great over light greens, whites, yellows, and even cream colors. I love to use this on some tree revenants, spirit skin, where I wanted more of the green hue over the pale teal, just to tie it into the forest tones used elsewhere. Try it over all manner of other greeny things. It also especially good for Nurgle miniatures. So yeah, it looks okay. Next we have Poxwalker. If you prefer a slightly unhealthier green, Poxwalker is right up toxin-filled street. Emma, speaking of Nurgle, Poxwalker is a shade perfect for everything gross and green. It has gray tones, making it perfect for dying or dead flesh, such as Deadwalker zombies. It is also used for the skin of orcs and kruleboyz, as it gives a great warm green shade to their skin. So yeah, this one just is like a little bit more of like a blue kind of color added in with the green. So this one is kind of like the greenish gray. I'm pretty sure that these are literally just all watered down versions of the existing shades. This is like, I mean, because this looks like the, what is it called? Camo shade or whatever, where it's kind of like a grayish green. Yeah, I don't know. That's what this looks like to me. So, which is what I suspect, and not necessarily a bad thing, but let's be real here. Let's call it what it is. Cheers, Emma. All the new shade paints are excellent, and the reformation of the existing range makes adding natural-looking depth shadow easier than ever before. Take into account the 25 new contrast paints and the new white scar spray, and we're sure you'll agree there has never been a better time to be a painter. So yeah, I mean, they look good overall. They definitely sort of fill a gap, but to tell you the truth, I don't see anything here in these new shades that you couldn't achieve with the existing line of shades and a little bit of medium. Now, we'll see. I'll see how they perform in real life. Obviously, it's not always the best to just slap something on a Space Marine and then say, hey, it looks good or it looks bad. So we'll have to see in time. I will definitely pick these up. I will give you guys an honest review. I will thoroughly test them and show you guys some of the cool effects and combinations that I've achieved. As far as the contrast paint video, everybody was super psyched about me doing a contrast video of like my favorite like 10 or so, and the ones that I personally use a ton and use up a ton and would recommend, and I will be working on that this week and hopefully have it out in the next few days. So thank you all for your feedback. If you are new to the channel, make sure to like and subscribe for daily videos, at least one a day, for Warhammer 40,000, Kill Team Necromunda, Age of Sigmar, Warcry, and some Horus Heresy as well. all kinds of reactions, reviews, news, painting, modeling, conversion tutorials, all that good stuff. And when it comes to contrast paints and shades and Games Workshop's line in general, you know, I am a definitely know all about it. I have like literally all their paints. I have used them exclusively for years and years and years, and they work phenomenally well. I have tried out quite a few of the competition and other brands, and for the most part, there's some gems here and there, but I really do think GW's paint line is great. I really enjoy it, and it's always nice to have more options. Now, are all of these going to be a necessity? Are all the new contrast paints going to be a necessity? No, I think for most people, it's probably a hard pass on like 75% of them. But again, I'm sure there's going to be a couple gems in there for sure. So that's it for today. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and I'm out of here.